Good morning. Today I'll be talking about my assignment 2. So basically, I'm going to break this video down into 4 different sections. So an introduction, which I'm doing right now, basically a run through of all my code, an explanation of all my code, and then a summary of everything that I've learned throughout this unit, or not unit, but throughout creating this program. So let's start off by going through the code and assessing everything inside my program. So first off, I started with a couple import statements. The first one is from time import sleep. The second one is import operating system. And then I open a class, which is basically a function where you can hold a lot of functions in it. So then I start off by basically checking if there's already a previous file, and if there is, I delete it. That's what this if and else statement for. If and else statement is for. Then my program it programs the functions. So it executes these different functions right here and everything that I've highlighted. So a function that takes basic information about the grades and credits, function that determines the user's current average, function that determines the average and calculates the required grades on the exam, so blah blah blah. So basically these are 4 functions that basically execute everything needed to get your final result, which should be the grade you need to get on your exam to reach your goal grade. And then other like math and functions. So then we go into our first function, so which is the number of courses you are currently taking. So self.endCourse equals input, enter the number of courses you're currently taking. Then this chunk of code right here, it basically checks to make sure it was a number that was entered instead of like a letter. And it also blocks this block of code appears many times. So then we move on to this right here. So it's basically defining empty variables. So in this case, 3 empty lists. Then there's a huge chunk of code from 72 to 117, which is all the way down here. We can just close this for now. So basically, this whole chunk of code takes inputs for credits, like your current grade and goal grades, and then stores all of them in a list. And then we move on to calculating the average, which is this function right here, def calculate average. So from here to here, it just creates some empty variables. And then finds the sum of all the credits, which should be right here. And then from 137 to 141, this block of code right here, it pretty much calculates your average. Then from 144 to 152, so the program basically just writes to the screen and file with the current overall average. Then we move on to the next function, which is calculate goal average. This is basically what the title says, calculating your goal average. So here we set 2 empty variables again. Then the main chunk of code from here to here, well, not the main chunk of code, but a big chunk of code. So this is basically the main code as in the overall average function, but this time with just the goal average instead. So then we move on to the next function, which is def exam requirements, or def exam, well, not exam requirements, def exam rec, I guess that's what I called it. So basically it clears the screen, so to allow the user to read the data more easily. So again, taking into consideration being user-friendly. Then there's this block of code, this 10-line block of code here. Pretty much checks to make sure the input is a number. Then turns it into a float right here, or a decimal if you want to call it that, but encoding a float. Which then the screen is cleared again to be user-friendly once again. And then shows the math. So basically, well, this is just commenting all the math that's involved. Like I basically created a little equation, or you can call it, to calculate what you need to get on your final exam, given like your current grade, the credit mark, and all of that. So that's just like some math, just showing it all in the actual code. Then this chunk of code right here basically just does the math. Well, basically this. And then basically this just writes to the screen like what the final thing is. Or sorry, yeah, this just writes to the screen to show the user what the final result is, like what you have to finally get on your grade. And then at the bottom, this just runs the main code. So now that I've gone through the whole code and program, sorry, I just have to sneeze. Sorry, it's just, one of those times where you feel like you really need to sneeze, but you can't really sneeze at the end. Yeah, I just had one of those. So anyways, now that I've talked through and gone through my whole code, I'll basically be summarizing what I've learned and what I've gone through this code. So basically what this code really reinforced, at least in my opinion, was like the reading into writing to file. I thought that I learned a lot through this, like making this like assignment 2 or this program, because before I was kind of hazy on the topic, but then I really got to know it through this this assignment. Even though I got to know it somewhat on my tools class, I wasn't like very familiar with it, like to the point where I had a solid base, but I wasn't like very strong in the topic. And I also think that I really learned, like I really enforced like my coding math skills, as you could call it, because I had to basically translate this whole block of math into a block of code, which is right here. And yeah, that's basically what I think I did really well on this assignment. Also, I thought it was like my background idea behind the whole program was pretty cool, since it is exam time coming up, and this code could be useful to a lot of students if they want to see what they have to get on their exams in order to achieve their, so you would call it quote unquote goal grade. So like I know for myself, I've used it to calculate what I need to get on all my exams to get my goal grades in each exam, right? But yeah, I just thought it'd be really cool and useful to have just in time for the exam period. So thank you, have a nice day, and I hope you really enjoyed my program in my assignment 2.